Hello, Raven fans, Oriole fans. Thank you for joining us here on the Ravori Sports Podcast for fans like me. Like and subscribe to all of our social media content here. So thank you very much for joining us this evening. Those of you also too that are watching this on Twitter, please come over to the YouTube and go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Major League Baseball predictions video is coming soon, the 23rd as well. Genesis Notary Services, Facebook.com. We are going to start taking appointments. I did have to take a week off, so we're going to go ahead and get that squared away. RavoriSports.company.site. Check it out. Because today we have a very special guest here. This is literally one of my favorite, and I'm not saying this because he's sitting here, one of my favorite podcasts that I ever found by accident. So it was great. This guy is, him and Van are hilarious if you ever see it. So we got E-Man from the Average Joe Sports Podcast here. We're going to talk to us tonight. How's it going tonight, sir?
Awesome, my man. Thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate it. You know, it's Tuesday. You're just heading on to the week and just trying to get it, man. Just trying to get it day by day. How you doing, man?
I hear you, brother. The only reason I think I ever watched your podcast was like when you gave a follow. The name was kind of funny, and you had a response. Like used to be when you respond, you don't get anything. You get a response, and I checked it out, and I started checking out the podcast. And even though you're not rooting for the right teams there, right?
Yeah, I know.
It was funny, man. I enjoy you guys. I'm always laughing watching you guys. My wife says that like you must be watching him. Because you just laughing, like watch the podcast. All right, sir. So let's start with a little football right here. We're in the middle of March Madness and a lot of things like here. Aaron, let's get right to it, man. Do you want him in the blue uniform? It would be an upgrade from Daniel Jones.
Look, yes. At this point, Aaron Rodgers, right? Man, I'm the fan. I'm the type of individual that at this point, it's just bring it down and rebuild it, right? There's no reason to spend the money on Aaron Rodgers. Look, you're going to draft a quarterback this year. Granted, this is probably one of the weakest quarterback classes we've seen come into the in the draft in recent years. Not like last year where you have four guys that you were like, the right system, this team's going to win now. Jaden, Bo Nix, right? If Ben Johnson was with the Bears last year and was doing what he did this offseason, strengthening that offensive line, I think that Bears record would have been a little different on the Caleb Williams. You know what I'm saying? So I just, at this point, to me, it doesn't matter to pay the veteran, right? Look, I'm going to sound like a complete douche here, but I'd rather tank for Arch Manning. You know what I'm saying? In the next draft. Then try to win 6 games this season. That's kind of what you got to get from Aaron Rodgers. We have a really bad offensive line. We didn't do much in the offseason to help that case. We pretty much were stagnant, pretty much. What do we got? We re-signed Tommy DeVito. We are a third string quarterback. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on, man. I'm not a fan anymore of Joe Schoen and Brian Dable. So
you stumbled on something I wasn't even going to bring this up. Do Giants fans want Arch Manning? Because how cool would that be to actually have had all those years Eli Manning and to have his nephew as the starter on the Giants, who is I think, phenomenal talent.
He's going to be the number 1 pick next year. I mean, if you saw the small sample size when Ewers went down this season, I mean, this is a Manning that's actually mobile. When the hell are you going to hear those 2 words, right? Mobility and a Manning. You know what I'm saying, dude? The kid takes off for 70-yard runs, has a typical Manning, accuracy and of course the intelligence of a quarterback and also that great arm. But he also can take off, for 70, 50 yards whenever he wants. So he's probably going to be the next generational Manning to come out and kind of set the world on fire. I mean, look, I honestly, this year, if we do draft a quarterback, we have to draft a quarterback, and I hope it's Cam Ward. He may not be available by the time he gets to us. No knock on Shador, but I'm a Cam Ward guy. Living in South Florida, I watch a lot of Cam Ward, man, playing at UM. So I have a nice sample size of what this kid can do with probably a team like the Giants. However, the Giants are such a complete crap show, man. There's nothing there for a quarterback to come in on a stability standpoint. So it's tough.
All right. But real quick, too, on Arch, it's also known, a lot of people don't know, they want him to sit. the family.
Yeah.
Peyton, Eli, and the family making these decisions. They didn't want him to come right in. They wanted him to sit. No, that's brilliant to actually have him. So that's actually great. Yeah, I don't think there's anything there in New York. Nothing.
No.
I don't know any one good reason why Aaron wouldn't just retire rather than play for. I mean, you won't win. Period.
No. Aaron, it is the thing. The Giants are there because his agent made a call. But it's not one of those things. It's not one of those teams that Aaron is gonna probably choose to play. I think it's gonna be the Vikings or the Steelers, or he's retiring.
I think. Do you think it is possible that they would take Shador? I don't think Shador actually falls. Personally, I think the Browns do take him. But do you think they would take him if he was there?
The Giants will. If Cam is not available, Shador will be drafted. That's pretty much it. It's gonna be a quarterback. If one of those two top quarterbacks are available, one of those two guys is getting drafted. I think we're picking at number 3, right?
Yeah.
If those two guys not available, then we go with Plan B, which at this point I have no idea who Plan B is going to be because it's been one of those. Joe Schoen's tenure as a GM has been very unpredictable, and for lack of a better word, really, really untraditional. And the guy sucks, dude. I mean, look at the whole fiasco. Look at the whole fiasco with Eli. I mean, with Saquon Barkley. Come on, you just don't do that. Whether you get him signed or not, it's just horrible. And I don't trust this guy to pick up at lunch as an Uber driver. Put it that way. You know what I mean? He's horrible.
Why didn't he get fired? Do you think? I was a little surprised by that. That like he hadn't. Dayball is still, despite of the record, is still seen as, even use Nick Sirianni as an example. Where like Sirianni is kind of seen as this dumb guy up until the Super Bowl win, but Dayball was always kind of in the media spoken very highly of. Why do you think that they're moving on with these guys despite a no quarterback?
It's funny. I said, and I said this a few shows back during the season, that at this point when they decided to like bring Tommy DeVito in as a quarterback, and they got rid of Daniel Jones, at that point they should have gotten rid of Schoen and Dable. You know what I mean? And kind of like, you might as well given the reins to the equipment manager to coach a team. But Schoen, I don't know why he's still here. Dable, I understand, because if Schoen's staying, Dable's going to stay. That's his guy. Schoen brought in Dable when he first got hired. So from a Brian Dable standpoint, he loved what he did his rookie year. His coach, his first year as a head coach. He kind of took a team that was really, really were not expected to do much and make it to the playoffs and beat the Vikings. And he put a nice little offense for the skill set of Daniel Jones. You know what I mean? He had probably his best complete season as a pro. Of course, you had Saquon Barkley, who was finally healthy as well. And he showed some promise. It's just, man, I don't know what happened in the last 2 years. It's like that Brian Dable went completely south. His I don't know if by losing the weight made him lose a little bit of his, common sense of smartness, but geez, man, it's like he did a complete 180. I have no idea, but I know what Dable is there because Schoen is still there. I think if Schoen would not be there, would have gotten fired, Dable would have been fired as well. That's the only reason why those two guys are there, because Schoen is still there. And honestly, neither guy should be there, as much as Brian Dable is a good offensive coordinator, But hey,
Malik Neighbors is there. All right, so that's good. There's on defense, I think I like Andrew Thomas on the offensive line. He had the injury. The name of the defensive guy, Lawrence, I think is the tackle. So there's you got like 5 or 6 guys there, but I think that there's a lot of work to. I kind of think of Lawrence Taylor so much when I see the Giants forever and ever. I think what it is the stability that the Giants had, kind of like the Ravens are now. Like, the Giants forever were at least not always a Super Bowl level team, but a solidly run all those years with Ernie Accorsi. And like, it's really just the post Eli Manning era is just sad almost to see what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, even like you said, as a kid, I remember seeing the 90s Super Bowl. Can't really remember 88, but I think that's when I got here from Cuba. So I was like 10 years old, so I wasn't into football back then. But I remember 91. Then after that, we were always solid. Then after that, we went through a little slump. We made it to the Super Bowl with Kerry Collins as a quarterback. You know what I'm saying, dude? I mean, that's insane. Then we kind of struggled, and we got Eli, and we started winning again. We were not the best, from a record standpoint, but we got 2 Super Bowls, winning, beating, Brady twice, right? And then the fact that Coughlin was a guy that gave that team an identity. And, we went from having an identity under Lawrence Taylor, and then we had an identity under Coughlin and Eli Manning, right? We were just a really tough team that we went to play. Man, we're going to run the football up down your throats. Eli's going to make the right throw. I mean, he may not look great. He might throw 4 picks in one game, but he might make that one throw that's going to win the game. That's kind of the identity. And then, that's what got us the Super Bowls. And then after that, the identity has disappeared to, we don't know what the hell we're doing. You know what I mean? We don't know what the hell we're doing. We've drafted Eli's heir apparent, and that didn't work out. The only thing him and Eli have in common is the freaking zip pullovers, sweaters. That's it, man.
Are the Jets in worse shape than the Giants?
Well, the Jets have always been like kind of the redheaded stepchild, you know what I mean? And that hasn't changed. The time that they had their success with, my gosh, I forget the Ryan. I forget the head coach's name.
Rex Ryan.
Ryan, right? They had an identity too. They ran the football. Really solid defense, and they haven't done anything else since. But the Jets have always been a joke, man. You know what I mean? I think the Jets now, if you put them side by side, now that they gutted the team from, Aaron and all the players that he made them sign, and every baggage that came with Aaron, I like Glenn because that team defensively is still pretty good. And that was their identity under Robert Saleh, and that defense went south as soon as they fired Saleh, which is a complete scapegoat job. I think Glenn is a little bit of a different coach, which I think is going to bring some people in that's going to help him with the offense. And look, I like this Justin Fields signing because everything they're doing now, unlike the Giants, are actually making some smart moves. Justin Fields is a good quarterback to bring along. I mean, yes, he's going to still have to prove himself, new offensive coordinator, all that kind of stuff. But I think they seem more solid, at least for this year. I like Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, all those guys on defense, Sauce Gardner. I mean, yes, they got to have a lot of decisions to make.
They have players in New York. They're not. Yeah. I would say compared to the Jets or the Giants, they have players. Mm-hmm. I was a little surprised they were so bad last year, quite frankly. Aaron got off to a slow start and they kind of just couldn't really recover from that.
And it's also Aaron Rodgers, man. He carries that he carries that I don't want to say toxicity or. It's just he is a very high ego individual who is very polarizing, and he's going to be a guy that he went there and he wanted to do his thing. He wanted to pull a Tom Brady, right? Unfortunately, is like Tom Brady was able to tell the coach, "Listen, we're going to run my offense," and this offense works, and they won a Super Bowl. Not with Aaron. So when that doesn't work, everything's got to go south, and I think that's what happens. He couldn't pull a Tom Brady in Tampa. That's what it was. And he backfired on the Jets.
If you were him, what would you do?
Aaron Rodgers? If I was Aaron?
If you were Aaron.
I retired.
Yeah.
Done. I mean, just look, he is probably from a persona, 1 Super Bowl win, great numbers, absolutely, surefire Hall of Fame. But he's going to be known as, one of the most talked about quarterbacks, right? Because of his personality. He also has the numbers to back it up. There's probably better quarterbacks than him, but you definitely top 10, definitely maybe top 5, maybe top 6. I would just retire. Why just keep putting your body and yourself through this, right? That injury he had 2 years ago.
I kind of think Aaron is the Dennis Rodman a little bit, Vince McMahon a little bit. You got to pull him out kicking and screaming. I don't think he's going to retire. I think he really enjoys being an NFL starting quarterback. As much as he whines about it.
Yeah, he doesn't show it though.
As much as he seemingly whines about it. But I mean, he's certainly not going to win a title with any of the teams, even if it's Minnesota or Pittsburgh, even if he signs. So
yeah.
But I don't think he retires. I think he plays somewhere. I think he's going to just he's going to rule out Minnesota once, because I don't think Minnesota really wants him. I think they would. I don't think they would mind him if he would just like compete for the starting job or maybe be a backup. I think they'd be fine with it because I think they want McCarthy, and I think Pittsburgh wants him. I think that's the best spot for him, but they got no clue on offense.
No, Arthur Smith.
That's why he doesn't want to go there. Yeah, because they got no clue.
No. Look, the overall best case scenario for him, if he was able to start, is the Vikings, right? You got Kevin O'Connell, but again, he has to go in there, and it's not like the Jets, right? It's not his team, it's O'Connell's team, right? He's the one who's gonna run the offense. He's the one who's gonna tell you, listen, dude, you gotta go my way. The horses with Addison and Justin Jefferson. I'm sorry, Hawkinson. What I'm saying, they re-sign Jones again. They're probably going to go draft really great defense, right? I think that's the best case scenario for him to win if he were able to come back. And I think he might be able to start because I don't think JJ is ready health-wise to start the season either. So I think, and also remember, he went down in preseason, so he hasn't gotten a real snap out there of real live football. Preseason football is way different than regular season football. And I think they want to make sure that they ease JJ along and not throw him in game one. That's why they're looking for
I don't think JJ is the guy.
No,
I don't think he is at all. I don't think he is at all. I think they think he is, but I think all the things you just said, they don't know, and so they would like to bring Aaron in, but Aaron's not the guy for that. A Joe Flacco would be a guy for that. I'm not saying that they're going to sign Joe Flacco. But Joe Flacco, if it doesn't go his way, Joe would be just fine, be a good mentor, sit the bench. Aaron's not going to do that.
I mean, Sam Darnold they should have just kept Darnold for $55 million guaranteed. That's better than most of the outgoing.
I'm a little lost why they didn't do that one either. I think Darnold keeping him, I think would have taken pressure off of all of them.
Oh, absolutely.
He played well. I mean, except for the last 2 games.
Yeah, I mean,
he didn't play well, but.
Year 2, he knows the offense, probably going to be better at it this year, second time around. I know there's and it's not like they've never seen Sam Darnold play before. There's already film on Sam Darnold. I'm just shocked about that. And even though they let, Sam Darnold go, and if you still wanted a veteran, why not sign Daniel Jones for $14 million like the Colts did? What Daniel Jones is doing with the Colts is he's just going to kind of put the heat on what's his name? I'm blanking with names. Who's the starting quarterback?
Anthony Richardson.
Anthony Richardson. Just put the heat on Anthony Richardson and put the pressure. It's like they're not going to help Anthony Richardson. It's going to be one of those things by saying, "Hey, look, we got a guy here that's an All-Pro. He made the playoffs, so get on it. He might just go in, just like they benched him last year for Joe Flacco. What doesn't that's the whole point of signing Jones because they don't trust Anthony Richardson.
I kind of had the same evaluation of Richardson in the last draft as I did of JJ. That's just not it. His passing accuracy isn't there good enough. McCarthy's more of a mystery, but Anthony Richardson, he's never, even at Florida, he was only like a 50-cent passer. Best throwing arm, outstanding throwing arm, outstanding speed. He's faster than Lamar Jackson running football, but he just 49% isn't going to work in it.
And here's the thing: if unfortunately, it's not the offense for him in Indiana. You need a coach that can kind of like what they did with Lamar Jackson in his rookie season. You know what I mean? They brought in Lamar Jackson. Hey, we're gonna bench Joe Flacco. Bring Lamar Jackson in. Lamar wasn't the best, had the best accuracy, but they built something for him to make sure that he was effective, right? And you guys make the playoffs and everything else. And then look at year 2, he won the MVP. I mean, Lamar is one of the hardest working, freaking football players in this league that's ever seen. You know what I mean? He just works at it every year. But I don't know what Richardson's work work capacity is because he hasn't shown me anything from year 1 to year 2. But I think he may still be salvageable, but it's one of those things that I think you got to have like the type of offensive coordinator, man, for his skill set. If there's going to be a chance at maybe seeing 1 more year or 2 more years, what you have with Richardson. But yeah, it's the accuracy is a problem.
Yeah. Richardson is not a Lamar Jackson. I think that's why they took him.
Yeah, that's what
I said it on the channel. It's the Lamar Jackson factor because he's that. You kind of see that in the vacuum. Lamar has always been a good decision maker, good percentage.
That's the difference.
Not a great arm always. Not as good as arm, but a good percentage. Always, he doesn't make bad throwing decisions throwing the football. Whereas Richardson just is inaccurate.
No. And let me tell you, most of his touchdowns were a freaking bomb to Alice Pierce, who was left wide open like 4 or 5 times during the season. You know what I mean? So it wasn't like, he was horrible. Trust me, I drafted him in one of my 2 quarterback leagues, and I paid for it. You know what I mean?
Let's talk a little Yankees, a little baseball, New York baseball.
Oh man,
look, Tommy John, man, Garrett Cole.
That's tough, man.
Strider last year, Batista, our guy. Like, is there a problem? I mean, with Tommy John in MLB?
I don't know. It seems to be very popular, right? Injury here. I guess these guys throw a lot harder, man. And it's just they just don't throw harder. They use more of your arm because it's a fastball that goes 98 miles an hour, but it's also moving. You know what I'm saying? So I think just because of that, and I honestly think, man, Garrett Cole has been a horse for us, and we've kind of wasted him because he's been that guy. He's been worth every freaking penny of the $300+ million contract we gave him, and he's pitched a shitload of innings the last years with the Yankees, the last few years, and I think he was due for that. And these guys don't pitch nowhere near the amount of innings we go back 20 years, right? But I think it's just the way it is in baseball, man. Look at these players like Skeens, these pitchers like Skeens, they come up and these guys just throw 100 miles an hour, but it's a different kind of like rotation on your arm because it's not just going straight. Like back in the day, I got through 95, there was not any movement on it. It was going straight down the pipe. It was going to go down low. These guys are like clocking 100, man. And the only way, a fastball moves is you got to have some type of arm rotation. And I think that strain is what's causing a lot of these injuries. It's something that's going to be unavoidable because it's just the generation we're in. That's just
I look at two guys that haven't gotten hurt to the degree, Corbin Burns and Wheeler, and both kind of like go to they kind of say something, right? Mm-hmm. Burns could throw that 97, but he never does. Neither does Wheeler. He kind of like mixes it in. It's there at times, a couple times a game, but that's about it. So is that the way to go with time? I mean, it's crazy. Like everybody's had Tommy John surgery.
There's no more Greg Maddux baseball, dude. That's gone. No more Tommy Glavine baseball as well. You know what I mean? That's gone. These, if you notice, I don't see pitchers hitting corners like they used to at 89 miles an hour. You know what I mean? It's they got to hit a corner, but it's just gonna go like 99. And it started here and it got there and it was a fastball. So I think that's just I think it's just a game today. You know what I mean? And not much about high school. I really don't focus on high school that much, but I don't know if these kids are doing this in high school already, right? Where they're throwing this many amount of breaking pitches and stuff like that. Nowadays, back in the day when we play ball,
they wouldn't allow. They wouldn't allow.
You didn't throw a curveball in high school, dude. No,
wouldn't let us throw it. Wouldn't let us throw it. No.
You were just throwing whatever. And the guy and the 75 percentile that clocked mid 80s. Those were the guys that got scholarships and went to a bunch of colleges and stuff. You know what I mean? But it was like there was no movement on that fastball. I think the world we live in, man. These kids are 18 years old, bro. They're throwing heat, man, with like severe movement.
Let's talk a little bit about Soto, man. I was watching a stream this week on the driving to the top, and one of the reporters was saying she's saying that Soto has an allowance, a clothing allowance in his contract for his mom's to get clothes. When the Mets are actually paying, and again, I don't know. That was what was said. That the Mets are paying for his mom to dress. I mean, super high maintenance, this guy. We talked about Aaron. Is Soto was like, cause anytime the Yankees won't pay it, that's a
the freaking Yankees are not paying like they used to, right? I mean, in this case, look, it was what, a $5 million difference with the box and all that kind of crap, or 10, whatever it was. I think the Yankees could have paid it and stayed there, but I honestly, I'm okay with that move. I just did not like the fact that all the money that we have, not paid him, we could have like done a lot more. You know what I mean? Like plug a hole at third, find your second baseman. Threaten the starting pitcher, the pitching now, I know we got one guy, but we could have, picked up more. We were
Stanton now you may not have all year.
Oh, no, I mean, but that's nothing new, right? You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
So looking at that matter, I didn't mind not signing Soto, and I'm okay with that because this is a guy, he's like millions. He gave out $500 million, right? And better than himself. You offer a player $500 million at the age of 22, 23, whatever they was. Nobody's going to turn that down, man. And with a good team as well. You know what I mean? At that time, that was a really good team he was on. So the Senators, and then with Nationals, right? So
Nats wanted to sign him.
Yeah. So look, that tells you I don't want to say he's not about a championship because he did play hard for the Yankees last year. He was one of the big reasons why we made it to the World Series. But at the end of the day, he just wants to make the money for himself and his family and take care of his family. Nothing wrong with that. But, I think he has money first, as opposed to winning.
The guy I thought about with Soto is Reggie Jackson. was kind of the
Okay.
guy, the back in the day guy. Reggie
Yeah.
always went to wherever the biggest paycheck went,
Hmm.
right? Reggie couldn't play the field either. He
No.
was a great home run hitter, great power hitter, but
Clutch guy.
Reggie, yeah, me guy always would complain about his, but so I think it's a phenomenal player.
Hmm.
I think he's probably third in the league as far as hitting, but um, do the Yankees have enough now
No.
to win? No.
No, man. I mean, look, it's hard when you lose a bat like that and you really don't do anything to replace that bat. I mean, you got Goldschmidt, you got a couple of other guys. You didn't really. I mean, I would say at this point, just go after Pete Alonso, right? Pete Alonso in this lineup, you know what I'm saying, was going to be cheap. Look, he's real cheap with the Mets. Again, I'm not a GM, so we didn't do anything like that, just to kind of at least make up for that lack of offense that we're going to lose. That's a big part, man. I mean, Soto was not only clutch, hit for average, home runs, RBIs, on base percentage. That's the kind of hitter he is. We didn't do anything really to replace that. Yes, we got Mask Freeze, which is good signing, but we didn't do anything else to keep strengthening that that rotation.
Well,
We lost.
they did sign Bellinger.
Yeah,
he's not the same as. So
no,
I got you. But
again, I mean, we've signed like him and Bellinger and Goldsmith. These guys already, their best years are behind them, right? Let's see what happens in this lineup. Maybe we'll get 3 or 4 months of old Bellinger and Goldschmidt, right? Because of the protection of the lineup. However, we don't have that solid protection offensive wise like we did last year. And then now, losing Hill to start for the first 3 or 4 months. I mean, he was a big part of the rotation last year, right? And then, you get Cole, you're a stud out for the season. I look, like I told my buddy yesterday, we were talking about it. I'm like, look, I'm being hopeful, but I'm not optimistic. So hopeful that offense carries us. All of a sudden, Rondon was 21, right? And then whatever this other guy wins 17. We got 2 guys are 18 games each, right? Because Derek Cole on the win-loss columns, you're looking at 20 wins, right? Not him winning 20 wins in the season, but a lot of those games, the Yankees came back and won, right? You know what I mean? So you're looking at about
he's gonna Cole would give you, like I saw last year with Burns, 24, 20, 23, 24 quality starts.
Yeah.
Quality starts. Like he's not going to win 23 games, but every time he goes out, he's going to give you quality. He's going to give you a quality start every time.
Yeah, we might win 20 less games than last year. Just because.
Wow.
Yeah.
20 less?
I'm going to say 20 less, man. You guys got better. Boston got better.
Oh, I don't.
Trust me. You're right now on paper. You're better than us, right? If you take all the injuries of our team, right? I think Boston got better, improved. So what I'm trying to say, whether you're on paper, you're better or not than us, we have a lot of voids right now. I mean, just Cole alone and Hill. That's a huge. That's like a good 40% of your pitching staff of the guys that threw the innings last year, right?
Offensively, I think you're right on the hit. Like maybe, I think offensively, maybe you're right. I think what you can't lose Burns and Grayson. Probably you may not have him at all this season. That ain't better. Like that, you can't lose those 2 guys and be better. Eflin's decent, but you got a couple of starters I think that are decent. But I don't know.
We'll see.
I still think the Yankees are in front.
I don't know, man. I think it's not going to be. I mean, last year when we were came out like a house of fire, and then we slowed down and got back. I think it was different. We'll see. I honestly, I'm hopeful, but not optimistic. I get too much of my realness in me sometimes to be like. I guess I'm also trying to be very negative to expecting the worst. You know what I mean? Or and then maybe hoping for the best, kind of like mentality. Because it's kind of big blows, man. You know what I mean? To open the Hill and then Gary Cole. Holy shit! Here we go. That's a way to start.
One more thing, real quick on New York sport, like St. John's.
Man,
I don't think I've ever seen He was taking a beauty on Twitter, Spike Lee, bit of a poser. Since when have you been wearing St. John's stuff? I've never seen and I've been watching since the 80s when they had Carnesecca and all
90s. I watched in the 90s, so they were really relevant in the 90s as well, early 90s.
Even then, they weren't like what I'm seeing right now. Patino's really got the garden going, really got I think they got the 3rd best player in the whole country, RJ. Any thoughts on the Johns and what it's doing? I mean, how important is that to New York? Do New Yorkers watch college basketball? Or
we don't watch college football. We watch college basketball. And St. John's in the heydays were a draw in the Garden, like Carnesecca days. I mean, look at the players that went through there, right? You know what I'm saying with Chris Mullen, And then when you go, and then later on, you had guys like Lamar Prostel, who was pretty good later in the 90s.
Felipe
Felipe
Lopez.
Lopez, who
Yeah,
that was his biggest mistake, dude. He should never gone to St. John's. You know what I mean?
yeah.
You know what I mean? He should have gone. He should have definitely gone to Kentucky, man. He would have had a better NBA career under better, because that's when St. John's was kind of like not stable. You know what I mean? He went from having that stability for the 80s and the early 90s. And you were like, oh, even though they had a great draft class, it wasn't the right draft class around Felipe Lopez. You know what I mean? So it's good because, like just like Patino is kind of bringing that whole Carne Seca image, right? You got a big head coach, you got a legend, and of course the Garden. You know what I mean? So I like it. I love seeing them in the tournament. I know they made the tournaments a few years back. And they did a little bit of noise. Like I said, I remember that the last time they were this relevant, this late, and let's see how they do in this tournament was like the LeVar Prostel years, right? Where they made a nice little deep run.
Yeah.
And none of those guys really, he got drafted for the NBA, but they didn't have a great NBA career. They didn't have a lot of NBA players in that team. And that was what St. John's was all about. There was really not a lot of NBA players apart from Chris Mullin and stuff like that. But they were always such a great team, and they battled the Hoyas. You know what I'm saying? They battled Syracuse. They battled Seton Hall, who had better players who ultimately made it to the NBA. So,
where are you with NIL? I'm going to talk about it a little more when I do my podcast. But Steve Alford really kind of killed players. Worried about, he's concerned about the players. These coaches can miss me. That, right? I mean, where are you at with guys getting NIL and money in that? It's changed, right? These guys are not really amateurs anymore. They're really professional players, even though they're going to work, they're in college.
Bill Belichick said it best. He's back in college because now it's kind of the same way as the NFL. You got to manage a budget. You got to manage a payroll. You know what I'm saying? So, I know Bill probably would have gotten a nice job sometime now this season, but he chose to go to college because he knows he's probably going to make $10 million a year when it's all said and done. He's going to have the boosters and the ability to, buy players. You know what I mean? I see it as a double-edged sword, right? I think it was needed because it's not right that these players are selling out all these arenas, right, and not getting a piece. Yes, I'm a fan. I wish I would have loved to have a spot. I would have killed for a scholarship, all right, a sports scholarship in any sport, right, that I played, baseball or basketball. I would have killed for that. I think I would have been happy with that. However, when you have a lot of these guys who most of them are not from a middle-class family, they're from middle class below. When they get there, man, here's a meal ticket. You really don't have any money in your pocket, right, to just kind of like do the regular things that you need to do, go to the movies with your friends, get a bite to eat and stuff like that. I think they needed to get something, but again, the double edge is that now you have players making $10 million and playing for 5 or 6 years, and they're coming back just because of the money, and they're going to the college that has the best money that can provide the best NIL deal. So it's kind of a double edged sword. It's kind of now you got to think different.
But to me, coaches and media can miss me because they're all profiting. Steve Alford, just picking on him. Good college player, outstanding high school player, good college player, played a little bit. He's been making millions of dollars as a coach for 20 plus years.
Yep.
You're not the guy to be telling these kids to like you can't make money. And the same with a lot of the media members.
Yeah.
They've made, how much money has Dick Vitale made? I'm not saying he was critical of him, but he's made millions and millions of dollars covering college basketball games. So why are you telling these 20 and 19-year-old kids? I hear people when they say that, but I think that's the wrong message. There's things you can do to put in place for these kids to get guidance, etc.
Yeah, no, I think they should get a piece. There's no doubt about it because they are the generating factor of all that money, right? If they're not playing in their teams, their teams are not going to sell out. Their jerseys are not going to sell. They're and it's so much about jerseys, just the gear, right? You know what I'm saying? If I'm gonna tell you, man, if I was in a big college football fan until I moved to Florida. But when I used to live in New York, right, growing up as a kid in Brooklyn, my favorite gear was to wear Miami Hurricane gears in the 90s. Not because I was a fan of the team, it's because they became a culture thing, right? And that's because of all the players that were there, Irving and all those guys, right? In the 90s or 2000s. So everybody was rocking Miami gear, starter gear. Yeah. They were making the money out of all the damn jackets and hats that they were selling, right? The school was, right? Because they had a deal with starter. But none of the players are getting any of that shit. You know what I mean? So it just needed to happen. They also need to get rewarded. I mean, I think there needs to be still have a balance because at one point it's going to become about the money and not so much about I want to go to the school because tradition, right? And I'm gonna win here, right? It just kind of start kind of people. You're gonna see players are gonna go just for the money, and he may ruin. I don't want to say the integrity of the game, but it's just I guess kind of a double edged sword, and it may have. It's gonna get to a point that you're gonna have a free agency, freaking free for all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Kind of deal here.
I mean, Rick Pitino, and he said he doesn't even recruit freshmen now.
No,
Doesn't do it. No point. Who is the small college guy he could take and make look like he's got right now? So that's what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, you could go to like D2 and get the best D2 player. Hey man, you gotta make $100K with me instead of going to whatever the D1 school that's in your area. I'll give you $100K next year.
And then you can be in New York and all that other cool
exactly.
stuff.
You got a place for him. Yeah, and you'll be and he's not even gonna be the one of the main starters. I need you to be my sixth man. That's kind of what you're gonna go. You gotta pay for players.
Yeah, so I think it's cool. The St. John's thing is cool. I don't think they're going to win the tournament.
No, but I have to make noise though.
I think Auburn and Duke are really the two teams. I think they're really separated.
I like Florida too.
Florida, I love their jump shoot. That's Reggie Miller 2.0. Whenever I see
man, I like Florida.
They quick, ugly release there.
Yep. And they play, they play tough. That's another sleeper. Again, look, it's. I think the number ones are valid. I like Duke. I've always been a Duke fan. I'm a big Duke Krzyzewski guy from the '90s, right? Because my game kind of resembled a little bit to Bobby Hurley. I wasn't the fastest or the jump the highest, but I was tough. I hit the J. Yeah, I took it to the rack, and I became a Duke fan just because Bobby Hurley. Plus, I knew Bobby Hurley he was a local legend in Jersey, so everybody knew Bobby in freaking New York.
Dan Hurley is just getting on my nerves.
Me too, man. I never liked Dan. Even when he was a player, I hated Dan.
I know.
I was a Bobby guy, man.
I want to talk about you a little bit here. All right, so I want to introduce to you. I told you several times. I think I told you before the stream tonight. Like, I think what you're doing is as entertaining as anything they have on ESPN or FS1. What training do you have to do this? Do this stream? None.
No, so not from a broadcasting standpoint. Now, in my career, I'm an assistant director for the department of sustainable. I'm the assistant director for sustainable management department of a local municipality. I was in the solid waste industry, managing operations, GMing and stuff like that for a period of years. Doing it now in the public sector. Was in telecom for a few years. I've always managed operations, right? And part of the managing operations, part of the job of being a leader, and and managing a large group of staff is you got to be able to communicate and mainly train. You know what I mean? So I've got a lot of training. So I've been talking in front of people, bro, since the age of 22. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I've done multiple trainings, I've done seminars, stuff like that. I've done conferences. So I guess it's the fact because I've always done a lot of public speaking. This is natural to me, and I love sports. This is the thing that I wish I would have done. But being an immigrant, being a Cuban immigrant, and even though I've been here longer than I lived in Cuba, I got here at the age of I was 8 years old. But I grew up in East New York, not the best area. We were poor and stuff like that. And my dad always wanted me to go to college, right? So I took business, and I was being in that area. All I focused was I worked full time, pay for my own school. You know what I'm saying? I didn't get into debt for my own degree, and that's what I did. And all my life, I grind to
What'd you get a degree in?
Business management.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, we got the same.
I stayed in business, dude. It was number one. I hated school, and let me do something that I know I'm going to be good at, and that's going to require a personality, right? And being semi-smart, and have common sense. So I thought I was going to one day own my own company. That hasn't happened, but I can't complain about my career. I've been able to have a decent career in two different sectors. I'm in the government now, and I've been there now for the last 10 years. I don't want to go anywhere. But I've been able to raise a family, provide the stuff that my parents can never provide me. But it was all thanks because the sacrifice my dad and my mom did.
Yeah.
It's so but again, one of the things I've done is I guess me having experience in training individuals and doing it in a large group setting doing a lot of, presenting also because, when you run your own operation, here comes budget years. You got to present to the, you got to present to the regional guys. You got to present to the
Right.
corporate and stuff like that. Same thing here. I do it in front of elected officials. So doing this is kind of natural. I just sit on the mic and let it fly, man.
How did you meet Cricket in Van?
All through X. It's funny. I used to do nothing but audio, and I met a bunch of guys in this. It was like a real low key, low grade reality fantasy football. Some dudes reach out to us, just like and we signed up, and we're all competing against each other. So I met some guys named Chris and Eric from Patriot Sports. I started I started coming on their podcast on Sunday because they used to do like every during football season they did a betting content, and we spoke about fantasy football, and that's how I made Cricket. Cricket came in one time. And he was there, and we did a show together with them. It was like a big round table. It was usually like 4 or 5 guys every Sunday, and then Cricket, hey man, I would love to do something with you, and I had him on my show, and it's been now 2 years, man, and Cricket actually does very, very well. He actually
Cricket is a workaholic, dude. Like you can't even turn on the Twitter without seeing him like every chance, man. He's always working.
Him and his buddy Game On, which is Will. I mean, in Rumble, they are destroying it. These guys are getting 20 to 30,000 streams, man, every time they go on Rumble. So
I believe it, yeah.
And he's also a bettor by trade. You know what I mean? He's I don't want to use the word bookie but that's what he does.
I got you.
You know what I mean?
I don't talk gambling on my channel, but I think I understand the beast we're in, right? You can't.
Everybody does it.
That's just. I mean, you can't do this and then have
no. And he comes to my show because he likes to talk about football. Everything else he does in all the other shows is basically, content, but also mainly gambling. So he goes, now when we do your Monday show, man, it's all about football. We just, we'll throw a couple of picks here and there, but it's all about breaking down the games, on the next day. So that's how it was. And Jim, same shit, man. I met him on X. He followed me. I followed him. I started listening to his content because, very similar style. Jim is just he's definitely 100. You know what I mean? And I like the way that he did his stuff. And one day, we started kind of talking to each other. We both smoked cigars, and I remember one time he started he does Steel and Teal with his other buddy Garrett. And one day, I think it was 2 years ago, at least before we start the show, I had him and Garrett on. I said, hey, let's do one of these. Like we did a preview for the division and stuff like that. And we did one of those, and then he reached out to me, let's do something together. And I was like, let's do cigars and sports. Let's just open up, we just smoke cigars and talk sports. And he was like, yeah, let's go, man. So we took a little bit of a break because we both had a lot of things going on personally. But now we're back, and that's how I met Jim. And I enjoyed doing both shows. I wish I had more time to do 5 of these, one every day. You know what I mean? It's just it's hard, man. It's hard to do.
That was kind of my next question. What's without revealing anything you got cooking necessarily that you're not ready to reveal yet, but what is next for you? You changed the name to Network. Now that may just be because there's another podcast like similar name.
Yeah,
I changed. Or is that more where you're going? Is that do you want to continue to collaborate and do more?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I changed it to Network because again, I have 2 individuals, right, where we both created shows together. And then just, we all do it on my original sports talk, Average Joe Sports Talk. It's a podcast. I mean, it's like we the following. I had a decent size following, so we broadcasted through all my channels. You know what I mean? And so it's like, I would like to collaborate and have people on. You know what I mean? And like I said, anytime anybody's welcome to the content, like I don't keep it for myself. If they ever want to download it, they could download it and put it on their channel. That kind of stuff. It's wide open. You know what I mean? I'm not taking any ownership. I don't pay them. They don't pay me. You know what I mean? It's more about collaboration and just it's having fun, man. I mean, I do this because it's fun, right? The day that it becomes stressful, I'll just shut the computer down and never do it again. I just do it because it's fun. It's my outlet. It's my hobby. Instead of going out to a bar and getting in trouble with the wife, man. This just turn on the laptop and. You know what I'm saying, dude? Number one, I've spent a lot less money, and happy wife, happy life. I mean, happy wife, happy life, dude. So it's my hobby. I mean, if you look,
I think you and I are both married. I talk to a lot of guys in this space that don't have wives yet.
No,
I think like in us, I think like I'm at the age where the kids are now not grown yet, but about grown. They're not little children. I don't have to follow behind them because I couldn't have when they were 3 and 2, and I couldn't have. Yeah, there'd have been no way. They're like teenage now.
I'm a little behind you. My oldest is 12, My youngest is going to be 8. I started late in life, dude, because I met my wife a lot later in life. I mean, I was one of those guys that I don't know, marriage wasn't in my cards or having kids early on, which God knows what He does. I think I would not be the type of father that I am today.
Right.
Unless I have my first kid. I'm 47 now. I have my daughter at 35, and then I have my son at 39. So it's like, but you're right. Now it's like, they could put themselves to bed. It's like I don't have to put them to bed anymore, or the wife. Even though we still do take turns and we have a ritual. But yeah, they're hands off, right? It's not like you said, they're not teenagers yet, but it's a whole lot easier to, if I'm there when hey buddy, I'm gonna jump on something. You guys can just take care of yourselves. So it's a little bit different. Before that, it was hard to do a podcast with having newborns or 4-year-olds and
Right.
3-year-olds do this. So
Does she watch sports? My wife does better than I think a lot of women do. Like she's we both like wrestling. I know, like we both like WWE and things like that. Is she involved
no,
in
she ain't.
what you do
No,
as far as that, or is that?
she supports it, but she doesn't watch sports. She doesn't mind going to live games, but no, she does not. She hates football season because it's one of those things that the Sundays, which is become me sitting in front of the TV doing something, on Monday, doing something on hopefully Sunday morning if I collaborate with those guys from Patriot Sports. So like, man, you kind of disappear. I was like, I mean, I'm here, but it's like once 1:00 hit, it's like I even try to change church times. Let's go on Saturday nights instead of Sunday. Because I wanna, so it throws everything off because I was like, but no, and she understands for that those 6 months, right? Now it's more wide open. That's why I miss some shows. You know what I mean? During football season, I'm gonna try to miss a Monday at least and try to get every other Friday. But nah, she's not a fan. She's not a fan of the sports. She could care less. My kids, I tried, but they're into other stuff, man. So.
My daughters have no interest in. If I had a son, I said if I had a son, it would have been cool. But my daughters, they have no. Again, a little bit of the wrestling they kind of like, but
that's kind of cool though. That's kind of
they
cool.
don't like. They've all 3 of them does something that they don't. They all like the girl wrestlers. Like my youngest daughter is like Bianca Belair.
Yeah.
Like the older one, like it was Mickey James.
Mm-hmm.
Like girls beating somebody up is always good. They're entertained.
Yeah. My daughter's into the arts. She sings and performs. My son, the only sport he likes is karate. He's been on it now he's been on it for like 3 years now. So since the age of 3. Actually the age of 4. He's going on 3 years. And I try to expose him to, other stuff. He's like, nah, I'm good. And that's the only sport we've been able to like keep him on. I say, you know what? Hey man, if that's the case, I was always a firm believer that I'm not going to force him. I would never force my kid to do something, even when they're young, because the liking part of it has to come from you. So, if one day he goes, Dad, I want to try baseball, you know what I mean? Even though he's maybe a little older, all right, let's go to I-9, man. Let's put you on an instructional league. Let's go. You know what I mean? I'm not, and I'll play with you. But I just, I'm not one of those individuals that just because I play sports. So like that, I did play baseball number 1 and then basketball number 2. And I played it, whether it was with friends or organized or, middle school, high school, that kind of crap. It's just one of those things that, if they're not, I'm not going to force it because I did. It's the worst thing to do on a kid,
Daniel Bryan kind of said the same thing. Brian Danielson, rather. He always gets asked, do I want my kids to be wrestlers? And I kind of have the same, what he said was, I want them to have something like wrestling was for me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what you said. I want the girls to have something that's not sport. It doesn't have to be this, but I want them to have something that's close to their heart. Like that. That's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If they like something else and that's their love, you encourage them to do that. My daughter loves singing. We have her in lessons. She's perform. And that's what you like. Go ahead. Actually, until you stop, you know what I mean? The day that you said, this is too stressful for me to keep doing it. All right, well, we're done. You tried it. Pick something else. But I think kids now age, man, it's like, it's a little different than we grew up, man. Our parents are like, you're going to be a baseball player. You can play baseball. Yeah, no choice. It's like, yeah.
One other thing, media, I want to ask you real quick. Where are we, man? We're here on YouTube. I think, like you mentioned, platforms. I think Ravori Sports Podcast is now on like 6 different platforms. I think now, Facebook, not shilling, but I mean, where do you think we are as far as mainstream media and people working in the media right now, sports media? What's your take on it? what's going to look like going forward?
Man, with all these platforms, especially streaming, you're gonna see the end of like mainstream media, like ESPN, cable. I think cable television is gonna take a hit. You're gonna start seeing it with the actual NFL, NBA. You know what I mean? How they're gonna split everything up. I think right now, you've seen a lot of individuals who've left mainstream media, right? Like Shannon Sharp, right? He'll do a guest spot here and there, but where he's really taking off is his own media platform, right? His own podcast. Look at Stephen A. Smith, man. All of a sudden, he started his own, podcast. He didn't have that before. He just got $100 million contract.
He saw what McAfee did.
Exactly. McAfee was another guy that started with it. Remember, they still do their own thing, right? And they're still generating their own money. Everything else on top is gravy. The ESPN stuff, all that stuff. I mean, and like I said, I'm not a Stephen A. Smith fan, but he's doing everything. He's talking politics. He's talking sports. He's talking baking, whatever the hell. Yeah. Whatever I think he's going to move the wheel, he's going to go ahead and touch. And he's going to have people on. And all of a sudden, he just started this a year ago. It's not even been a full 2 years. I mean, he might have had a channel open, but he never he might have just post videos every once in a while. Now he just dedicates time to it. And this is a guy that just got $100 million extension.
And Mac, I really, Stephen A. and McAfee, and I really like the fact people don't realize they didn't want him.
No.
McAfee, they turned him down. They kept turning him down. That's why he started his own show. And he goes back in, and now, that's why he's such an idiot. Well, no, they're not telling me what to do. No, you need me. So no, we're not.
That's why he still has Aaron Rodgers after he insults half of the damn network. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter. I was like, you need me, and he's right, because he's bringing the viewers. It's not the other way around. So it's funny because, like you said, these guys have their own brand. And the networks need the brand, not the other way around. Back in the day, you needed the network to create your own brand and become famous, right? You know what I mean? All the guys from sports centers, right? That kind of stuff. And then from there, you moved on somewhere else to a different network, because now you had a resume. It's like a job, right? You and I, right? We gain the experience, and then you want to apply for a bigger company, because once you have the experience, and then you have a kind of reputation, and if they do the background on you, and they call this guy's the man, Charles is such a hard worker, man. Charles is such a great leader. Charles, he's you got to get a great individual. Okay, so Charles asking for $30,000 more a year. Let's bring Charles along, and let's give him the money. Right. That's the way it was. Now it's different. Now these guys are like, you know what, man? I have a little bit of recognition, right? I mean, look at everybody. Everybody has a podcast. All right, look at the Kelsey brothers. I mean, those two morons got how much money did they get? From what was it, FanDuel or DraftKings? I mean, insane, dude.
30 million, yeah.
30 million. I mean, come on, man. I mean, give me $500,000 a year. All right, give me $500,000 a year, man.
I mean, people don't realize Clay Travis is worth $100 million out.
Yeah.
Bill Simmons is.
Yeah, a guy that was getting paid. I'm sorry, Trey Clyde was getting paid like $40,000 a year, to do local radio, and this is a former lawyer. You know what I'm saying? Bill Simmons, perfect example. He started all this shit. You know what I mean? ESPN, Barstool. You know what I'm saying? All those guys. Those are the
for the same reason he got rejected. So I don't
exactly. And then they bought him, gave him a ton of money, and then he bought his company back for like $5 or whatever the case it is, or $1. You know what I mean? It's
same thing with McAfee. Yeah, you reject now. You need me now. I'm gonna be a jerk.
Exactly. I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, shit.
Yeah. All right. I thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for doing this. Tell the people where we could find you on all your multiple platforms.
Yeah, I mean, I my show, I got a couple of shows going. We got the Unscripted Sportscast with me and Cricket. That's every Monday. Jim every other Friday or Saturday, depending on our schedules. We do Cigars and Sports, 8 p.m. I have kind of launched a new show where, sometimes when I'm not doing a show with either guy, I want to do something where I want to just jump on and react. It's called Off the Cuff, which is kind of me. I'll probably have people on and stuff like that, but it's more like a impromptu. You know what? Sometimes news break, and I got the time. I want to jump on and do a live and react on it. You know what I'm saying? It's called Off the Cuff. It's going to be a lot of improvisation. You know what I mean? So that's that. I'll pop in, a few times a month. So yeah, you can find me on X. That's the fastest way to get me. From there, I that's how I keep all my followers informed. But my show is live on X, YouTube, and Rumble. And I need to start pumping up on Twitch or something, or I don't know what other. I gotta see what you're doing. Because I may need another platform somewhere.
Twitch and Rumble, you can almost get monetized immediately, very quick.
Yeah, Rumble. I like Rumble. I get more views on Rumble than I do anywhere else. You know what I mean? And X.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Thank the E-Man for joining us. Thank you very much for joining us for the Ravori Sports Podcast. Like and subscribe to all of our social media content. You enjoy the rest of your day. Have a great day.